What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Top Dogs podcast here on the Field of 68 Media Network. It's been a while since I was able to catch up with you guys. It's been a busier fall than I thought it was going to end up being here at Field of 68. We're going to be on the road doing a number of media days. We have a number of online media days and remote broadcasts that we're going to be doing. As you can see, I just finished recording one right now. I got the Field of 68 polo on, and there's a lot coming here. Hopefully, I'll be able to have episodes with a couple of the guys that you're going to want to hear from on the UConn roster this year. That stuff will hopefully be coming up here in the next couple of weeks. So I'll keep you posted on that. But this feed is going to become live again. It's going to become active again. And it's going to become the place that you want to go to for UConn basketball content once again coming up here. All of that said, there's a reason why we are talking today, and that reason is that UConn landed a commitment from five-star freshman DARIUS Adams of La Lumiere, a native of Manasquan, New Jersey, and a guy that I think is going to be a really interesting piece for UConn this year. UConn moving forward. He's the first commit in the class of 2025. Hopefully, he won't be the last commit in the class of 2025. UConn is chasing a number of really highly touted and highly pursued prospects in that class. Before we get into it, just a couple of programming notes. Please rate, review, subscribe to this podcast. If you do enjoy what you are listening to, any of that stuff helps, and all those interactions really do help with the almighty algorithm. And while I got you guys here, I just want to let you know at the end of this episode, you're going to hear a little bit of a breakdown from John Fanta, Terrence Oglesby, and myself of UConn from today's episode of the DTF podcast. We did do a Big East preview today on the episode, and we spent quite a bit of time talking about the league, talking about some of the players, and specifically talking about UConn and their likelihood of having a chance to three-peat this year. I'm going to spend a lot more time talking about that in the preseason. I'm not going to elaborate on it here, but rest assured that there are a lot of things that we're going to want to touch on this season, and a lot of things that we need to talk about when it comes to UConn this year. All right, let's talk about DARIUS Adams. He is a guy that is an intriguing prospect in the sense that he is a freshman that kind of plays with a little bit of an older game, if that makes sense, right? He's got a level of maturity with the way that he plays, in the sense that he's not one of these guys that's going to come in as this overwhelming athlete with an overwhelming level of quickness, or he's just a big physical dude that's going to overpower people. No, he's got something of an instinctive feel in terms of the way that he plays. You know, he's really smooth in the way that he moves on the floor. He's not someone that's going to get by you because of this incredible change of pace. He's not someone that's going to jump over you when you get to the rim. But at like 6'4", 6'5", he's just a really good, solid, well-rounded guard that can score the ball in a number of different ways and is more than just a bucket getter. I think the number one skill that he's probably kind of known for, or was before heading into last EYBL season, was his ability to shoot. He did not have the greatest season shooting the ball in the EYBL last year. Some people were a little bit down on him as a result of that, but I do think that he is a guy that, because of the variety of ways that he's able to get a bucket, you kind of want to bet on it a little bit. And he's a guy that I think where you buy into what the shooting numbers were before last year, you buy into what the stroke looks like, and you kind of buy into the fact that maybe he wasn't on the greatest EYBL team, and that he is, in my mind, he is not a guy that you want being the go-to guy long-term. I think that he is going to be very, very, very good when it comes to kind of being able to play a role and do a job and be a piece within the structure of something bigger than just him, if that makes sense. And I think that it's really a perfect fit for what UConn will be looking for. I don't think that he's quite the level of someone like a Liam McNeely in terms of how versatile and how dangerous he is offensively. Not a lot of people are, but I do think that he is someone where, if he is on campus for a couple years, we could be looking at a guy that has a chance to be an all-league player sophomore year, probably more likely junior year, and someone that, where they get into the gym with this coaching staff, is going to find a way to be able to develop. So let's kind of start with what he is offensively. You know, I think it all kind of starts with the jumper, right? I think that's what kind of sets up what his game is on that end of the floor. He's really good at attacking closeouts. I think kind of spotting up and being able to hit somebody with a pump fake and find a way to be able to get to that mid range, maybe even get all the way to the rim is where he's at the most dangerous right now. He's a little bit right hand heavy, but he is right handed and he is 16 or 17 years old. And those are the kind of things where when you watch film like that, guys tend to be a little bit towards their dominant hand. He's able to kind of come off of screens and score as well. He's able to come off of DHOs. He's good at kind of reading how those sets look, and I think that's part of the appeal with this UConn staff in terms of uh, how he kind of fits in what they do. Like so much of what their offense is running off of screen, running off of pin downs, and running off of dribble handoffs, and being able to kind of operate within the framework of an offense or framework of a set. And I think that Darius should be able to do that stuff relatively well fairly early in his tenure as a basketball player. He's probably better with the ball in his hands than he's going to end up getting credit for as well. I think that he's not exactly someone where you say, I want to put this guy in 27 ball screens every single game because I trust his ability to break down the defense and read ball screens and do all that. No, that's not him. He's not CP3. But he is a guy that if you do put him in a ball screen, he can probably get to his mid-range pull-up. He is a guy where if you do put him in a ball screen and the defense goes under that ball screen, he's going to bury a three over the top of you. He is somebody where I think he is a good enough decision maker that there's a world where he can be really effective kind of in those sets. The thing that made someone like a Cam Spencer so good last year in UConn's offense was that he had kind of the mindset and the ability to think the game like a point guard with the shooting ability where if you ran off that screen, he's going to hurt you and bury you if you don't get a hand up. And that combination of those two things is what made him so dangerous, so deadly, and so efficient. Now, I don't think Darius Adams yet is the shooter that Cam Spencer was. I don't think that he is quite the level of passer yet that Cam Spencer was, but you got to remember, Cam Spencer was a guy that began his career at Loyola, Maryland, and worked his way up as a fifth year to become an All-American and an NBA draft prospect. And if Darius gets into this to the UConn program and can kind of develop under the tutelage of this staff, like I don't think it's crazy to say that as a senior he can be similar in terms of what his impact is as Cam Spencer. I'm not saying he's going to be that efficient. I'm not going to say he's shooting at the same level, but I think that he'll be a guy that could be in the mix for first team All Big East, maybe someone that down the road could have that level of impact. I think the biggest thing that he needs to do at the next level is it's all of the physical attributes that he kind of probably needs to put the most effort in, right? I think that he's listed at like 165 or 175, depending on where you look. He looks like a 6'5", 175-pound kid when you see him. And adding a level of strength and a level of physicality is something that I think will be important for him because of the way that he plays. Because he is not the most explosive guy, he's got to rely on angles and he's got to kind of rely on being able to, you get by a defender and you got somebody on your hip, keeping them on your hip, right? You get to the lane and you got to kind of go finish through people. You got to be able to use your shoulders and use your off arms to finish at the rim. And that's something where work in the weight room, work in a collegiate strength and conditioning program is something that will really help him. I think that'll also make him a little bit quicker. I think it'll also make him a little bit more athletic. And again, he's not a guy that is going to blow you away with his physical tools. That's just not what makes him effective at this level. But I do think that it's not like it's not like he's me out there, right? It's not quite the negative that you would have kind of said that it had to do with Cam Spencer, to use the Cam Spencer example again. But I think that that's something where, again, you get in a strength and conditioning program, you'll be able to add a couple of inches to that vert and you'll be able to get a little bit quicker. And I think that'll only make him more effective as he kind of moves up levels. But overall, I think he's a great get. I think he is someone that will allow UConn to be able to get he's a piece that I think guys would want to play with, if that makes sense. I think that he is a piece where he's not someone that's going to dominate the ball. It's not like just to say you're bringing in AJ DeBonsa where, AJ DeBonsa is going to want to go out there and try to score 30 every single game. I don't know how many other guys at that level will want to be on the roster if AJ DeBonce is on the roster, if that makes sense. So I think that he is a good pickup in that sense. I think that he is a guy that will check some boxes in terms of, being a 5-star and kind of being able to uh, allow UConn to say, hey, look, this is what we're recruiting. These are the kind of players that we're going to get. And I do think that he's someone with a very real upside. That also makes a ton of sense for how he fits into their offense. I understand why the staff went after him. I understand why he decided that going to UConn was a better fit than going to a Tennessee or going to a Michigan State or going someplace like an NC State. I think that the commitment there and the way that that recruitment played out makes a ton of sense. And if you're going to keep getting guys like this, I think that UConn is going to keep staying at the level that they're staying at. He is a player that I don't expect will be a one and done, but I do think has down the road a little bit of NBA potential and definitely has a ceiling there. So I think it's a good get. I think that UConn fans should be excited. I think he is another guy that is, he's a Jersey guy that understands what is going to be expected of him when he gets into a program that is run by the ultimate Jersey guy in Dan Hurley. And I think UConn fans should be excited. That's another good get. Hopefully he is not the last good get that this program sees over the course of the next couple of weeks and couple of months. So that's all I got on Darius Adams today. Really nice pickup, really big commitment. On the other side of the break, you are going to be hearing T.O., John Fanta, and myself talking a little bit about this UConn team and where we see them from our Big East preview that you can find in the DTF podcast feed. Until the next time I see you guys, hopefully you'll be hearing from at least one other player or one player from the UConn program. And if we can get those done, we'll be able to get those done. And I'm looking forward to it, man. We are now, as of today, as of this recording, 5 weeks away from the start of the 2024-25 college basketball season and the start of the stairway to 7. If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM Sportsbook. We're going to be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68 throughout the year. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, you can use bonus code FIELD, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. The best part, all you need to do is deposit and bet $10 of your own hard-earned money to be eligible. Here's how you make it work. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using that bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure that you use that bonus code FIELD when you sign up. BetMGM is going to have some fun offers available throughout the NBA playoffs. Bet insurance tokens, odds boost, and what I love, a nice parlay boost or two from time to time, as well as a ridiculous array of player prop bets for any sport that you could possibly imagine betting on. BetMGM is and always will be the king of the prop bet. So go download the BetMGM app, use the bonus code FIELD, and sign up today. And while I've got you, a quick request. The best way to support the Field of 68 content that you get for free is to engage with us. Rate and review the podcast. Like and share the YouTube videos. Tell your friends about us. It all helps in a world where the algorithm is king. And now, back to the show. I have 6 storylines that I've kind of circled here, and we can roll through each one of these. We'll be kind of quick on them because we are all very verbose. That's the word. Yeah, we talk.
Verbose is good.
All right. The biggest
verbose is good. Of course, we're using the wrong words half the time. You said invent instead of event. I said shits instead of ships. We're off to a rough start. Fanta, carry us, baby, carry us.
Fanta,
come on, guys.
The biggest storyline in the Big East is the biggest storyline in college basketball this season. UConn is going for a three-peat. I'm going to frame the conversation like this, right? If anybody other than Dan Hurley is coaching this UConn roster, right, the one that they've put together, where do you have them ranked? If it's not Dan Hurley and it's whoever, an average to above average basketball coach coaching a team with this roster, where do you have them ranked? Because I probably would have them somewhere around like the 15 to 20 range, I would think. Is that crazy, Tio?
No, I think that's about right. I think there's a lot of question marks, especially in the backcourt. And even the front court, Klingen's gone. They're not quite as big because that dude was a massive human. But I would probably put them in that 15 to 20 range. But just because it is Dan Hurley, there's going to be a learning curve with this unit because there's so many new pieces. Who does he rely on from day one? They're going to win a lot of games, don't get me wrong, but there is going to be a little bit of a learning curve.
Well, who doesn't have a learning curve in college basketball? But Connecticut, we said last year they might have one, and guess what? That didn't happen. There was no curve. They just kept rolling. UConn has the best coach in the country. They have the best offensive system in the country. What their offense has turned into is absolutely outstanding. It's like watching poetry in motion. I don't have question at the guard slots because Hassan Diarra and Aiden Mahaney are tough. I think Mahaney's going to be a nice fit for this team, but Diarra, Big East Sixth Man of the Year last year, it feels like all of the waves have led Hassan to get to this island where he is the man, where he is the point guard, where he is the tone setter. He's got that in him. Alex Caravan is a first-team All-American candidate. Liam McNeely is positioned to be one of the best freshmen in all of college basketball. My question does lie in the front court, and that's out of respect for how great Donovan Clingan and Samson Johnson, and before Johnson, Adama Sanogo and Donovan Clingan were the year previous. Now you're asking Samson Johnson, a solid big man, but somebody who's never had this type of role as the lead horse, and Terrace Reed, the transfer from Michigan, who has shown some good flashes, but now is going to be asked to do more and to come off the bench and do more. I'm curious to see what they look like at the center position.
Yeah, I think the center spot is the big question mark I have.
You're also asking Hassan Diarra, who is terrific, and I've spoke on this as much. I'm a big fan of his. He's a bulldog, and he plays so hard, and he is the Dan Hurley type of dude. He's replacing Tristan Newton, who is back-to-back Final Four most outstanding player. And Cam Spencer, who, as fun as he was to watch for a lot of people, that dude was one of the most unbelievably efficient players, I want to say, in the history of college basketball over the course of one season. He was that good. So like Mahaney is really good, and I've seen him in person. He's not built like Spencer. Spencer's wide and he's heavy. Mahaney's a little bit slimmer. There's going to be a difference in competition in the Big East and the type of play in the Big East compared to the West Coast Conference. He is talented enough to do it. I do think that it's going to take him a second to kind of adjust to the physicality of the Big East and how that league is played.
Yeah, so my hot take, and Fanny, we talked about this on the UConn offseason pod we did, is that when you're talking about roles offensively, I think we're going to see an Aiden Mahaney in the Tristan Newton role, where he's kind of like the guy at the end of a clock that you put the ball in his hands. We're going to see McNeely in something of the Cam Spencer role, where they run him off of pin downs and run him off of DHOs and kind of put him in positions to be able to make decisions, right, and make choices. And I think Hassan Diarra is going to be kind of the Steph Castle, Andre Jackson secondary facilitator. We're going to put him in a corner. They're not going to use him as like a lob threat, obviously. I think they're going to use him more as like a playing him in the corner, force defenses to have to make a decision on if they're going to guard him or not. I don't know if it's going to work as effectively, and I do think that so much of buying into UConn as a potential national champion is like you are betting everything on the player development within that program, right? You're betting on Jalen Stewart taking a big step forward, Solo Ball taking a big step forward, Alex Caravan going from like a really good piece to the guy. You're betting on Hassan Diarra taking a step forward, Samson Johnson taking a step forward. So it's going to be interesting to see, but I'm excited about it. I think that it's closer, and I guess this gets into the second storyline for me. I think it's closer at the top of the conference with Creighton and Xavier specifically than a lot of people are giving it credit for. I would have Xavier as the third best team, maybe even the second best team in this league. And I think that Creighton, if they get Zugic, is right there as well. But we talked about it like on an episode. When was it? Last week, Fana? We talked about how good Kalkbrenner is. 2 weeks ago, how good Kalkbrenner is. Yeah. I just think that Creighton and Xavier have the horses to be able to make a run here, and you can't count out Marquette either.
Yeah, and let's talk about Xavier, because when you look at Xavier, part of the reason why we're saying this is because of the man at the helm. Mm-hmm. You're just not going to bet against Sean Miller having 2 down years in a row. But I think the thing with them is, when I was talking with their staff at the end of last season, they were so excited knowing they would have Davion McKnight, who can set the table for this team. back for another year. They obviously loved Quincy Oliveri, and he did a lot for them, and obviously he's not back. But I think for them, then it was like, all right, what do we need to do to supplement in the backcourt? Well, what did they do? They got Ryan Conwell from Indiana State, close to 17 points per game last season, 6 rebounds, 3 assists per game. Guys, I think he could be an All Big East first-team caliber player if everything pans out. He could be that good. They
love him. They love him.
They absolutely love him. They also are very high on a sophomore named Dalen Swain, who they think has a chance to be special this year, has really grown as a player, and has had a really nice offseason. Dante Maddox, they bring in from Toledo, another guy who was – Sean Miller just likes getting buckets, a la Sule Boom, Quincy Oliveri. Well, Dante Maddox, 16 points per game, 3 assists per game, over 4 boards per game. They got these pieces around McKnight in Conwell and Maddox who should really help. I think the biggest thing with Xavier is when it's been so damn long since we have seen Zach Fremantle and Jerome Hunter functioning, what does it look like when they're back on the floor? And are they at the level that they used to be at? Because I can tell you guys right now, and John Hughley, who I know T.O. will talk about, was a really nice ad. If Fremantle gets to the level that he was at and stays healthy for the entire year, this team could be the second best team in the Big East. And hell, they could challenge UConn for the top spot because I think the backcourt plays steady. I think Miller's so fired up to have a bounce back year. And I think that front court now is deeper, much deeper than it was last year.
Yeah, and you didn't even mention Marcus Foster, who's big on the wing, is going to be able to open up the floor, and he can really guard. But we've alluded to the backcourt and some of the pieces they've added. Trey Green comes back, who was good off the bench for him at times last year. Like there's just a lot of really good pieces, and I'd rather have too much scoring and then figure it out as opposed to just hoping that some guy is like, well, he's going to take a big step. These guys are proven scorers, so that helps things. Now you might have to restrict some because you got to be better across the board. You can't have everybody averaging 17 points. There's not enough basketballs, especially in the Big East. But it's good that they're bringing in all these pieces. I just feel, the front court's not getting enough love right now because Fremantle comes back. I'm a fan of Hughley. He's been a tough sucker ever since he got into college. He plays with an edge. He's that kind of guy. Jerome Hunter is back from injury. Now, how they come back from injury is going to be huge. But with all with all the speed in the backcourt, you have big wings on the perimeter that can space the floor. This could turn out to be a really, really good team. I have them right there with Marquette and Creighton, but in that 2-3-4 area, just because I'm still curious on the eligibility concerns with Creighton. What happens there is going to change my mind drastically as far as how high or how low they're going to be. But this is a really good roster that they've put together. And Sean Miller, I mean, he came back with a vengeance. There's not a lot of guys, and you alluded to it, there's not a lot of guys that you can bank on having more than one bad season in a row. Sean qualifies. He's in that space. They're going to be really, really good and a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, the amount of perimeter talent that they have is just ridiculous, and obviously, picking them to compete with UConn is a bet on the health of Zach Fremantle, which is worrisome. Like, when was the last time we saw him have a completely healthy season? It's been like 3 years, so hopefully he stays that way. And then on a note outside of basketball, it's nice that we are talking about Jerome Hunter potentially having a chance to return to the sport because what he dealt with was really, really scary last year.